Welcome, captains. World of Warships is a game with plenty of classes to choose from, and each with their own unique armament. And in this video I'm gonna tell you all about aiming with all the kinds of armament we have in the game. So regardless if you like guns, torpedoes or aircraft, you're gonna find something for yourself in here. First, let's go over the most common type of armament, which are gonna be the main battery guns. The principle is generally fairly simple. All you need to do is actually shoot where the enemy will be instead of where he is now. To properly lead your shells, selecting a target within your main battery range is very important. Once you select it, you're gonna notice that over their HB bar a little circle appeared, and your camera actually starts following the target. This is called lock-on. Lock-on decreases significantly the dispersion of your shells while shooting at the target. Next, zoom onto the enemy using your mouse wheel, or you can bind a key to it. I, for example, use left shift. Once you zoomed in, you see a line for prediction and couple extra stuff such as range to the target and how long it will take for your shells to reach it. The line has couple small indicators, each 1 second apart from each other, set for enemy moving at 30 knots. So you need to also adjust a little extra if they're moving faster or less if they're moving slower. If an enemy is moving broadside to you, the aiming is fairly simple. When they are moving towards or away from you, you also need to adjust for it. The very simple idea is to draw something of a circle with radius of the prediction that you need to take around them on the water surface, and then try to follow it. This way, you're gonna have much easier time predicting enemies' movements. Couple extra things about the guns. Since you're firing over such long distances, your shells do not go in a straight line as well. They go in a curved line. That allows you to actually shoot over certain obstacles such as islands, but also may result in you hitting not the part you actually were aiming for. Your caliber actually matters a lot in terms of what ammunition you're gonna use and how to aim as well. Since big battleships usually shoot exclusively AP ammunition due to a mechanic called overmatch, meaning that you ignore angling of the enemy if you have big enough caliber. Such as in this clip when I played Battleship Bungo with 457mm guns, allowing me to shoot directly through the nose of Brisbane, killing it almost instantly. Notice how I aimed in this situation. I used my spotter plane to have a different view from up top, allowing me to see that enemy is currently reversing. Then I made the correct prediction to shoot and hit his most vulnerable part, which is the nose, and instantly get into the citadel. When you're playing ships with smaller calibers, especially cruisers around 2 or 3mm guns, you need to know when and what kind of ammo will give you best result. What ammo is the best and at what ranges varies from ship to ship, and I'm not gonna go over every single possible scenario in this video. I've already made 2 videos about aiming with main battery and I highly suggest you check them out. I also make a lot of detailed guides about specific ships when I show how I aim with them and how efficient certain parts of them are. But not every single ship is focused around main battery. Some of them are focused around secondaries. Secondaries fire automatically at any target defined in range. However, since they are mounted on the sides of your ships most of the time, very often you find that they are unable to fire directly forward or directly backwards. They need to find the target on the side. And how do they do that? Well, your PC steers how they're gonna fire and at which target. However, there are two inputs that you can do to impact how they behave. First, you can enable and disable them by pressing the P button. Second action is by pressing Ctrl and holding it, which will enable the mouse. You can press on top of enemy ship and mark it as a priority target. Therefore, any secondary that will have a choice between shooting two ships will try to fire at the priority target first. This is very handy when you're playing secondary spec battleship and you need to maneuver around many enemies, whilst running a perk that actually is very important for the build, which will increase the accuracy of your secondaries against the priority target. But you don't need that perk to actually make the secondaries prioritize that target. AI of the secondaries will always try to hit directly the dead center of an enemy ship. And I mean the direct middle of it. Next kind of armament are the torpedoes. Torpedoes are much simpler to use than main battery actually. And just like main battery, you have a circle that shows you on the minimap how long your torpedoes can go before they dissipate. To aim with torpedoes, simply select them by pressing 3 button as default or whatever you have set. This will change your aiming mode to firing the torpedoes. Just like with main battery, you can select the target you want to fire torpedoes at. But in contrast to it, you can do it outside of your torpedoes range. You can actually select any detected enemy on the map, even if he's on the other side of it. And what it will do, it will show you a grayed out area that is a prediction that takes into consideration enemy's current direction, enemy's current speed, and your torpedo speed. It doesn't take into consideration your maximum torpedoes distance. So even when you select somebody on the other side of the map, this grayed area will show. However, the torps will only go as far as they can, and they won't be able to hit the enemy even if you fire them at the grayed out area if he's on the other side of the map. This area constantly shifts if the enemy is changing direction. And it's not a guarantee that if you fire your torpedoes directly on that area you will score some hits. It's there to help you estimate how much you need to lead your torpedoes to hit the enemy. There are two schools of using the torpedoes depending on what do you have. First, and the most recommended one by me, is Wall of Skill. It's simply, whenever you see an enemy that you want to fire at, get onto his side. Then, use the torpedoes to fire in front of the grey area, on the grey area, and a little bit behind it. If you do not have more than 2 torpedo tubes, fire a little bit into the grey area and behind it, or fire one set on the grey area and one behind it, or one in front of it. That highly depends on the situation you're in. Ergo, I make a lot of guides that are for specific ships, since it will take too long for one video to actually talk about all of them. Second school is stacking the torpedoes, which is firing them very tightly near each other for maximum burst of damage. However, this might lead to you dealing no damage whatsoever as well. Interesting things about the torpedoes is every single ship that has torpedoes has 2 ways of firing them: tight spread and wide spread. Most of the ships should exclusively use the tight spread, since it's already fairly wide and maps usually do not allow you to be efficient and use the wide spread. However, there's a specific gimmicky way of firing the torps that only certain ships possess, such as, for example, the British, when the tide spread is being replaced with the single fire of the torpedoes, which is very good in fitting into tight spaces, and the widespread is being replaced with the common type. Good practice of using the torpedoes is waiting for an enemy to finish their turn and then trying to torp them, or try to torp enemies that are within very confined space between islands, and the ones that are, for example, trying to take cover from your allies behind specific islands. Keep in mind that some of the ships also possess hydroacoustic surge, allowing them to detect your torpedoes from longer ranges. Another good practice of using the torpedoes is staying undetected for as long as possible while trying to get as close to enemy ships as possible. For example, if you want to kill enemy ship without them realizing and making evasive maneuvers, it's better not to smoke up and not to fire at them. They cannot expect them coming if they do not see a possibility of them coming, which would be, in this case, your ship. Okay, now let's move on to aiming with aircraft. Hey Silent, you forgot about submarines. Okay. Submarines have three kinds of armament: ping, homing torpedoes, and standard issue torpedoes. Standard torpedoes can be fired at surface and periscope depths and work basically the same as normal destroyer torpedoes, but can be fired one by one, just like the British ships can. Homing torpedoes and pings work together. Ping is something that you can fire just like your main battery, however it doesn't go in a curved line, it just goes over the water, so you don't need to actually aim vertically. Unless you fight underwater with enemy submarine, then you actually need to make a little bit of a prediction for the depth. It also travels incredibly fast, so you don't really need to make that much of a prediction, but if you need to, you have the same rules as for main battery guns, and all the ping does is highlights a sector on the enemy ship. Once the sector is there, the homing torpedoes will try to correct themselves into hitting that highlighted sector. If you hit it twice, the homing of the torpedoes is being increased. Enemy can obviously remove the highlighted area with the DCP, but if they do not have it, they're most likely gonna be hit by all the homing torps that there are, because those are kinda broken. Fun thing about the homing torpedoes, apart from them being incredibly broken as hell and very simple to use, you cannot change the pinged target for homing torpedoes once you fire them at one. Meaning that if you ping one ship, fire the torpedoes, and ping at another ship, they're still gonna home towards the first highlighted sector. If you want to fire a fresh salvo of torpedoes that's not meant for the primary target that currently has highlighted sector on, you can order the next torps to ignore the priority target by pressing the G. Then they will exclusively home to the new pinged target. Now let's go over basic principles of aiming with aircraft. In World of Warships there are many ships that can take advantage of having planes on board, but you still need to know how to correctly aim with those to inflict the damage. First, let's go over how to actually drop with a squadron. Once you get your squadron airborne, you're gonna notice a grayed out area that has different shape depending on the type of squadron you're having. This can be rocket planes, torpedo planes, bombers, and skip bombers. The gray area shows how far away from the enemy you should be before you could start an attack, and it varies on your plane's speed, direction, and the type of squadron you're in. To start an attack, simply press left mouse button. The attacking part of your squadron will separate from the rest of it. The gray indicator is gone and you see orange one. During the preparation time, you cannot really do anything, you need to wait it out. It's not that long as well. Once the preparation time is over, you're gonna notice that the orange indicator changed color to green, and now you have couple seconds to make your drop. Once the drop is over, you're gonna be returned to your main squadron and placed on cooldown before you can do it again. Now let's go over making predictions with different kinds of squadrons. First, the rocket planes. We have two kinds of rocket planes. We have the HE rockets that are working just like very small caliber HE shells and require a little bit of prediction due to them having preparation time of around 3 seconds on average. That also has specific mechanic, which is the machine gun fire, that helps enemy destroyers dodge your attacks. Each rocket will land exactly when the machine gun fire is. The difference between HE rockets and AP rockets is how they behave when they hit an enemy. HE rockets, they can cause fires and they do not care about enemies angling, however they really care about how thick the armor is. The AP rockets, however, also care about angling of the enemy and where the enemy is actually hit. They work extremely well against cruisers, since they can hit their citadel and inflict tons of damage. However, since they are AP and work like smaller caliber AP shells, they can also overpen the target. Second type of squadrons you can have are the torpedo squadrons. Those have all the kind of drop patterns that I'm not gonna get into details of because that should be left for guides for specific ships. However, what you need to know is that aerial torpedoes need time to arm. You see it as an area that is colored as well when you're dropping. Aerial torpedoes in general should be dropped from enemy's side and in such a way so that the area where the torps are armed should stick a little bit to the enemy's nose or be a little bit on it. In such a way the torps will reach the enemy target directly in the middle, causing significant damage. If you want them to hit more towards the nose or the aft when there is no torpedo protection, you need to adjust a little bit more to the left or to the right. Good practice is dropping the torpedoes so that they arm as close to the enemy as possible, making them much harder to dodge. Next kind of plane armament are the bombs. Those also differentiate between HE and AP, with very similar rules to what the rockets had. However, whilst HE rockets do not really care from which angle they're being dropped, HE bombs very much do, since best way of dropping them is either from the front of the enemy or the aft of the enemy, due to all of them patterns being so that the bombs have very big dispersion up and down, but very little to left and right. This is also the case for AP bombers. However, for them you also need to consider what target you're dropping, since they have a very high tendency of overpenning the low armored targets. Last kind of bombers we have are the skip bombers, and they also differentiate between HE and AP. However, instead of being dropped directly from above, they are trying to skip, hence the name, off the water a couple times. And this is why their indicator is so weird. Every line is indicating a place where the bombs will be skipping. This is very important, specifically for AP skip bombers that currently are exclusive to Shinano. HE skip bombs and HE bombs behave the same way, just like medium to high caliber HE shells. AP skip bombers have very specific kind of property though. First, two lines, which is the one you're dropping and the middle line of the AP skip bombers, have very high penetration value, allowing you to actually citadel battleships if fired from the side. However, the last line leaves borderline no pen. That's great for actually hitting the cruisers, since you're gonna be less likely to overpen them. Skip bombers are best to be dropped from the side of the enemy instead of the front or the aft. But I think that is very obvious due to their linear pattern. In terms of planes such as Dutch ones, they work on same principle as the HE dive bombers because they are technically dropping HE bombs. All you need to do is select an area where you think enemy will be in 15 seconds. That's it. That's entirely it. On average, you should leave a gap between enemy's nose and the area you're selecting equal to the area you're selecting, which is not really that difficult seeing everything from up top. However, most of the time you're gonna be using this drop to hit targets that are stationary behind islands, which you cannot normally shoot with your main battery. Hitting cruisers and destroyers is very hard because even if you select the area correctly, the good and drop planes spread in such a way that you can still miss if the target is too small. The drops are also visible from a very long distance since they are incoming planes, so it is not that hard for enemy to evade even the most precise of your drop. Same thing goes for using ASFW. However, in contrast to Dutch drops, ASFW actually has a different time of arrival depending on the range, and you don't see your target because it's a submarine underwater and all you can do is try to tell by the ping where it is, but the ping after the changes makes it borderline impossible since it's still fairly random. At least it showed you the direction the sub was going. That would be it for this, I think, very simple introduction to all the armaments we have in World of Warships. For more detailed information, I highly suggest you check out my other videos. If you like this kind of content and you feel the need for more, feel free to like and subscribe to my channel. If you want to ask for something or want to request me to cover a specific topic, feel free to ask in the comments. I love reading the comments and engaging with the community that I'm so proud to be a part of. See you guys in another video. It's been Senpai Silent here. See ya.